Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Todd Bernhard, and I am in product marketing here at CloudCheckr. First, I have a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to all registrants. And you can access all of our webinars at cloudcheckr.com/webinars. And there is a link to our free 14-day trial on our website and in the link section of this webinar. Please ask questions throughout the presentation. We'll address them at the end. And so let's begin. Today we're going to discuss how CloudCheckr helps enable the AWS well-architected framework. And be sure to stay with us through the end for a special offer. And we have some special guests from a new brand. I'll let them talk about it in a second, called Mission. And today's agenda, we'll go through our introductions, and the folks from Mission will tell us about what the well-architected framework is all about and how Mission helps, and we'll talk about how CloudCheckr helps. And Mission folks will talk about the cloud optimization service they offer. And as I mentioned, we'll talk and address your Q&A. So again, I'm in product marketing here at CloudCheckr. I've been here a couple years. Before that, I spent 8 years as an app developer, developing mobile apps. And before that, 16 years at Sun Microsystems, where even though we sold hardware and software and equipment, we were preaching the cloud with our tagline, "The network is the computer." So kind of foreshadowing the cloud. And I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan and let you guys introduce yourself and take it away.
Thanks, Todd. Well, my name is Jonathan LaCour. I'm delighted to be here today. I am the CTO for Mission. We are a leading AWS consulting and managed services provider. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to us in a moment. But I've been around the cloud since the dawn of cloud, and I've been building apps and services, a lot of SaaS and enterprise applications as well, since around 2006. Passionate about product and technology, love food, and I love bespoke suits. So now I'm going to introduce my colleague, Mike.
Hi, everybody. Oh, just went to jump ahead there.
There you go.
There we go. My name is Mike Boudreau. I'm very happy to be here as well with you guys. I'm the Director of Cloud Optimization here at Mission. My background is in cloud architecture and sales. I've been doing that for about 7 years with one of the companies that we'll mention in a minute. And for the last 5 years, I've been focused on reducing our customers' spend in the cloud. I think in my sweet spot of jobs in my career, I'm obsessed with efficiency and I love to talk technology, so this is the right place for me right now. And I'm a foodie as well.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Mike. Let me introduce a little bit about Mission. So, as Todd mentioned, we're just have rolled out this brand in the last week or two. We're really excited. We're actually the combination of 3 AWS partners based out of Los Angeles and Boston. And together, we have merged into one kind of powerhouse group that is able to offer a comprehensive suite of services. And we like to talk about our services across the entire spectrum of what customers need in the cloud. So from architect, which includes things like migration, readiness assessments, technology road mapping, and POCs, and kind of the application of AWS practices, through migration. So we do guided cloud transformations, which includes kind of the full transformation of your workload to make it cloud native. We also do lift and shift migrations, CI/CD implementations, infrastructure as code. We also provide full management, so AWS account management, 24/7 monitoring and support, including operational support. So if you wish to offload some of the work of operating your workload and ensuring that it's available and responding to alerts, we can provide that. We have a security solution based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, continuous DevOps consultation, and then optimization services, which really gets to what we're talking about today. Continuous review, cost optimization and attribution, application performance management, and AWS well-architected reviews, which we'll discuss in a little bit. So that's a little bit about Mission, who we are, kind of your partner for end-to-end assistance with AWS. So Mike, why don't you give us a quick introduction to what the well-architected framework is?
Great, thanks, Jonathan. So in 2015, at the annual AWS reInvent conference, AWS CTO Werner Vogels announced a well-architected framework in the form of a series of white papers targeting 5 separate pillars of best practices and guidance. Altogether, the framework helps ensure that applications are architected properly for the cloud. AWS has continued to evolve the well-architected framework over the years, and now it's the most complete and thorough collection of best practices and guidance that's available for organizations undergoing the cloud transformation. Jonathan, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I think it's important to talk about the benefits of the well-architected framework. You know, adopting the framework, it's a deep collection of best practices, so there's a lot to learn, but the benefits are huge. So first and foremost, the principles help you move more quickly, right? Building and deploying faster. And in my experience as a product leader, this is the biggest demand on operations and product organizations. Develop more quickly, produce more quickly. So it can really help with that agility. And it also helps surface risk and helps you address those risks before your applications and workloads are put into production. And that's obviously a big concern as well. We frequently have to make big, potentially very financially meaningful decisions, and the well-architected framework helps by focusing the organization on enabling that rapid decision-making to design our applications and workloads to be observable. So that's a really important thing. And another common problem is just benchmarking your architecture, procedures, and systems against best practices. There's so much to learn in kind of the world of AWS these days, and well-architected is an excellent way to kind of benchmark yourself. Am I keeping up? Am I doing the right things? Those series of best practices, these come from AWS themselves, and they have extensive experience across thousands and thousands of customer architectures. So it's really a well-informed collection of best practices. So that's a little bit about the benefits. But one of the really interesting things is that when AWS launched the program, they were doing well-architected reviews from their own solutions architects, and it was very difficult to get one from AWS because they have limited bandwidth for that. Well, last year they announced a well-architected review program with partners, and we were a launch partner for this, and that means that we can go and engage with you and do a well-architected review just like you would get from AWS. We're trained and certified by AWS to do them. And we assess your workload across the 5 pillars of the well-architected framework, and we surface insights and give you a full report on kind of what you might need to do to get in compliance with well-architected. Now, we have some insights after doing dozens and dozens of these reviews. And what you'll see here is over 95% of the reviews that we perform surface at least one critical security issue. Over 80% surface at least one reliability issue. And over 75% surface at least one operational excellence issue. So these are the high critical issues. This isn't including kind of the medium to low issues. So these are the most important things to kind of comply with. So, in our experience, even if you think you are, fully compliant and doing everything right, odds are if you go through the rigorous process, you'll discover the ways that you can improve. So I think it's a really valuable program to go through with a well-architected review. So Mike, why don't you take it away and tell us a little bit about each pillar of the well-architected framework?
Thanks, Jonathan. So we'll start with the operational excellence pillar. This pillar is all about the ability to continuously improve the processes and procedures that support the systems that you use to deliver business value to your customers. For each of the pillars of the well-architected framework, there's a set of design principles that guide you on how to implement your architectures in the cloud. And the design principles you can see for the operational excellence pillar are listed here. The focus on how to, these design principles focus on how to successfully manage your daily operations in the cloud using features enabled by the cloud. So on the security pillar focuses on everything you can do to protect your data and systems from internal and external threats. The key focus areas include protecting the confidentiality and integrity of your data, providing access to data and systems based on the principle of least privilege, identifying and implementing protections for your systems and data at various levels, and then establishing controls to detect and respond to those security events. The reliability pillar focuses on what you need to do to make sure your application is available no matter what happens. It's the concept of designing for failure, and it's all about preparation. The design principles of the reliability pillar that you see listed here will help you focus your thinking around everything that has a potential effect on your total system availability and how you can design the recovery from failures into your architecture. Mistakes here can be really costly, so make sure you're designing each architecture with the appropriate level of fail-safes to match the availability requirements of your particular application. The performance efficiency pillar is all about the efficient use of compute resources as demand changes and technology evolves. So we've long used performance statistics to notify us when our systems are overloaded, but this pillar is focused on collecting data over time and across changes so you can make informed decisions on how to optimize the performance of your systems overall and how to maintain that efficiency as your business needs change. And finally, the cost optimization pillar. This pillar is all about avoiding or eliminating unneeded costs or suboptimal resources. So the promise of the cloud is that once you move there, you'll only pay for what you use. It's a consumption-based model. So if it exists in your account, whether you actively use it or not, you'll be charged for it. Cost optimization best practices are focused on making sure you only pay for what you need. So by analyzing where your spend is going and combining with that an analysis of the usage and performance of your resources, you can make sure that you're using the appropriately sized infrastructure without any unnecessary waste to deliver your product to your customers.
Before we launch into this next slide, Mike, I wanted to interject and just point out that we've just presented a very, very brief summary of the well-architected framework in these last 5 slides, right? It's an in-depth kind of subject and topic. So we actually have prepared an ebook on the well-architected framework that we'll be sharing with the audience after the webinar. And we've done a series of other webinars on the topics as well. So if you want to learn more about it, we will supply you with lots of great information in depth about the well-architected framework itself. So I just wanted to provide some context there before we moved on to the next slide.
Great. Yeah, we wanted to provide a quick overview of the well-architected framework, but focus more on how we use CloudCheckr to maintain a well-architected state for our customers. So, in our intro mission about mission at the beginning, we talked about how we provide services across the complete spectrum of your cloud journey, and the final step in that journey is optimization. One of our main services in that area is our cloud optimization service, which applies the best practices of the 5 pillars of well-architected framework to our customers' architectures on an ongoing basis. So you can think of it as essentially a well-architected as a service. More than just cost optimization, we take a holistic view of your cloud architecture and provide informed insights that are aligned with your business goals so you can make data-driven decisions. And as mentioned, one of the tools that is critical for us to provide this service is CloudCheckr. So Todd, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you very much. And as I first mentioned in my introduction, I used to work for Sun Microsystems in the heart of the Silicon Valley. And a colleague of mine had a father who was an architect. So speaking of architecture, but he was from the Netherlands, and he had moved to America, specifically the San Jose area, and he got a job as an architect. Well, for his first job, he showed his plans to his boss, and his boss said, "These are great, but what about earthquake preparedness?" So there are standards that are unique to the Bay Area that specify how you have to reinforce doorways and so on to prepare for earthquakes. So indeed, in the 5 years that I lived in the Silicon Valley, I experienced 5 earthquakes, including the big one that collapsed the Bay Bridge during the San Francisco Giants Oakland A's World Series, which was October 17th, 1989, 29 years ago today, in fact. So the point is, architecture needs to factor in the environment. So what does this have to do with the cloud? You can't just take building plans from one area, the Netherlands, and transplant them to San Jose, and likewise, architecting for the cloud is different than architecting from the data center. So how CloudCheckr helps with operational excellence pillar is we provide change monitoring logs, so you can track all your changes, identify potential candidates that were undesired changes, investigate, determine if corrective actions need to be taken. Jonathan and Mike, if you could take yourselves off mute, if there's anything you want to add about how you guys use CloudCheckr specifically for operational excellence.
Yeah, we use CloudCheckr so we track changes to everything from infrastructure to security configuration. So we get a quick overview of the changes that are made from the change monitoring report in CloudCheckr. And using that, we can drill down into the items that are listed there to get more details about who performed the action, where it was executed, and this can help in determining if we need to take corrective actions to reverse the change or take steps to prevent it from happening again. Jonathan, do you have any other thoughts?
No, good summary there. That's great.
Great, thanks guys. So it's always nice to hear how our customers, our partners are using CloudCheckr. So now let's talk about the security pillar. And, I joke that, our name is CloudCheckr, so our middle name is Check. And we're known for our checks, our best practice checks. We support over 550 best practice checks, and they cover security and compliance, which is our focus on this pillar, but also cost management, availability, and usage. So most of our checks are focused on security, and some examples are to make sure you don't abuse the root superuser account, or that you're following best practices for IAM, which is identity and access management, and such as password policies, and how long your passwords are, and how often they have to be updated, and can they have lowercase and uppercase and numbers and special characters and so on, user and group permissions and so on. We check on exposed ports and your use of encryption, and most importantly, storage container permissions like S3 buckets. So the really neat thing, I think, with many of our best practice checks is this Fix Now capability. So whenever you see a little blue circle next to one of our best practice checks, that means it supports automation for self-healing. So you can click on Fix Now, and you'll have the option of fixing the underlying vulnerability or misconfiguration, and you can fix it that one time, or where it's really powerful is if you select Always Fix. So what Always Fix means is whenever CloudCheckr detects that same problem, that same misconfiguration, somebody made an S3 bucket public and they shouldn't have, you can have CloudCheckr fix that problem even if you're asleep, and it will send you an email saying, hey, I found this problem, but don't worry, I fixed it, and you're compliant. So that's really powerful, and when you start moving to the cloud and you move more and more, you migrate more and more workloads, you really need automation to be able to scale. Now, speaking of compliance, we recently introduced something called Total Compliance. With Total Compliance, we score up to 35 distinct regulations, whether those are government standards or industry standards, including HIPAA and NIST and CIS and PCI, really 35 of these different standards. So the odds are pretty good that your industry is included. And we score those and plot them over time. So you can see this chart showing moving up to the right, you want to get as close to 100% as possible. And this is very useful for auditing purposes, so you can go back in time from the drop-down menu and see what your compliance standard was on a specific date. So if you do have a security issue, you can say, well, we were compliant, and you can avoid penalties that way. So it's It's really quite powerful, and this was just something we added at no extra charge, so I'm pretty proud of that. Gentlemen, do you have anything to add on how CloudCheckr helps with security?
Yeah, so there's lots of ways to use CloudCheckr. We're just trying to highlight a few of them in a brief time here. So we actually use CloudCheckr's security best practice checks to track when our security standards aren't implemented as they're intended. One of the kind of design principles and best practices on AWS is that your root account shouldn't have AWS access keys. So we use CloudCheckr to get notifications for these types of alerts, and then we can take corrective action based on that. And like Todd said, some of them are automatable, which you should absolutely do. If you can automate something, you should absolutely do that. And we take advantage of CloudCheckr's automation capabilities to do that.
Yeah, and to add to that, as I mentioned in the earlier introduction, when our well-architected reviews, security is the #1 kind of area where we identify a problem, right? When we go through the review process, and like Todd said, there's lots of great features in CloudCheckr to help with that, and this is definitely one of those areas where I think engaging with a partner can be very helpful because we're always watching and always looking, right, to make sure that you have a good, safe environment, and CloudCheckr is a huge portion of helping us do that.
Great, thanks. So that brings us to the next pillar, which is reliability. And this means that your cloud services are going to continue to function, even if there's some kind of outage or distributed denial of service attack or other potential cause of downtime. So again, CloudCheckr's best practice checks ensure high availability by doing things like requiring that snapshots are maintained properly, that you have load balancers pointing to healthy instances, and you're spread out over multiple availability zones, which I'll talk about next. This is to protect against man-made as well as natural disasters. So we've talked about earthquakes, but there's also floods, and so you want to take advantage of multiple availability zones. So with the well-architected framework, AWS recommends that administrators stop guessing capacity and use tools like CloudCheckr to monitor utilization and optimize provisioning. They also suggest that users manage change with automation to avoid manual tasks. Again, it's really the only practical way to scale reliably by using automation and avoiding human error. So I promised I'd talk about availability zones. This is to limit the possible impact of an outage in a single data center. You use AZs. These are usually comprised of multiple physical data centers that are connected by a high-speed network connection, and they provide a certain amount of resilience to your solution. There have been cases of an entire region with multiple availability zones going down in the past, so in situations like this, you want to have multi-region deployment. Of course, this isn't free. There's traffic costs between AZs or between regions, and it can be more complex. So a good partner like Mission can help manage that. We also came up with a free tool called ZoneCheckr, and it's spelled the way CloudCheckr is without the E at the end. But if you go to zonecheckr.com, it's kind of like if you imagine you're shopping for cell phones and you see AT&T's coverage map and you see Sprint's map and Verizon and T-Mobile, if you could put all those maps on top of each other, that's kind of what we did with the different cloud providers. So you can see at a glance who serves what areas of the world, and if that's important to you. For example, Africa is well served by Microsoft, and in the Middle East you have both Amazon and Microsoft coming soon. Gentlemen, anything to add?
Yeah, I think mostly just to reinforce what you said about the availability zones and the automation and the notifications for that, and that's how we use CloudCheckr. It's AWS provides multiple availability zones, and a reliable application should be implemented using at least 2 of those. So we use CloudCheckr's best practice checks to notify us if the load balancers don't have healthy instances in at least 2 of those availability zones. And generally we would have automation in place to prevent something like that from happening. But if something does eventually happen like this, an alert from CloudCheckr will notify our team that an investigation may be warranted. We follow up on that.
Yeah, well said. And the interesting thing to me is I think the reliability pillar is one of those ones that really shows the great insights that CloudCheckr can really dive deep and surface. And earlier we saw some things that CloudCheckr can actually automate and fix for you, but some of the ones here require you to actually make changes to kind of your infrastructure as code, your configuration management, some of your automation systems, and that's again where partner effort really helps step up. The output you'll get from CloudCheckr and from the well-architected framework are a set of best practices that you actually need to apply. So really pushing that across the finish line is one of the big, encouragements I give to people. You're going to get great direction out of CloudCheckr and the well-architected framework, but actually implementing it is really the critical step, right?
Great, thanks. And I'll just add, building on that, if you're still using a data center, for you to build in the resiliency that the cloud offers would be astronomical. The idea that you could say, with all this climate change and weather and whatever, let's set up a data center in Iowa, or no, how about Chicago? And you can do that literally at the click of a button. So it's a huge advantage of moving to the cloud, and something you really want to take advantage of. So the next pillar is the performance efficiency pillar, and here's an example of how CloudCheckr helps with that. We have these beautiful graphical heat maps that can display graphically the hot or cold usage levels, percentage utilization of, in this case, a particular instance over time. So you can draw some good conclusions from this about when you're busy, when you're idle, when you can turn your instances off perhaps to save money, or maybe where you need to throw a little more hardware at the problem. Another tool that we offer is our right sizing tool, and this is a little bit of a misnomer because it's called right sizing, but it should probably also be called right typing. And the reason for that is we can make recommendations not only if you need to go up because your utilization is high, or down because your utilization is low, but maybe even skip across families and or different generations. So in this case, we see an M5 2 extra large should just be an M5 extra large. A T1 micro should be upgraded to a newer T2 micro. And that's because, to their credit, Amazon is always coming out with newer technology. In fact, they just came out with the T3s that in some cases, in all cases, offer more performance, but in some cases might offer more performance at less price. So you need a tool, again, if you're going to scale this, that can make these recommendations. And just like our best practices, we have the Fix Now option, where you can say, go ahead and make this change for me so I don't have to log into the AWS console or use the command line. And I didn't mention it earlier, but our Fix Now can also be replaced with what's called a Request Fix. So Request Fix says, I would like this change to happen, but somebody more experienced than myself can review it, and according to my company's hierarchy, and they can either approve it or deny it or send it back down with some questions. So, some people might be a little hesitant to adopt Fix Now, so it's nice to know that you can just say Request Fix and let a human, as you guys were talking about, add some value. So I mentioned it before, you see that little blue circle, that tells me that it supports the automation, and we're adding that to more and more of our best practice checks over time. Jonathan and Mike, anything else for performance efficiency?
Yeah, again, building on what you said, we use the features like the utilization, CPU utilization heat map, and it helps us identify patterns and of performance in our systems, and we can use that data along with the right sizing reports as well to experiment with different trade-offs. It's the cloud. You're not committed to using a specific server that you've bought, for the duration of the time that it's there. You can switch to another size server, switch to another type of server, and make those adjustments and to try to meet the different specific needs that you have of your different applications. So we're always looking at CloudCheckr and the data that it sifts through and provides to us to to optimize our customers' architecture in various ways, whether it's size of instance or the usage of a specific type. So yeah, I think Jonathan, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, well put. Very well put.
Great, thanks. So let's get to the nitty-gritty, how much it costs. And the promise of the cloud is very attractive. You know, you just pay for what you use and not a penny more. But in reality, many resources are incorrectly sized or become acquired and then go underutilized or forgotten about altogether. In fact, it's a misnomer. You don't pay for what you use, like you guys said. You pay for what you order, whether you use it or not. So you really want to just pay for what you need. So Gartner estimates that enterprises could be overspending by 70% or more. There is a better way. So I kind of call this the home page for CloudCheckr. This is the first page I would log into each day, and I would see what my potential monthly savings are. Now, Amazon is great. To their credit, they've lowered prices more than 60 times since AWS was released a decade ago. As their costs decrease, they pass those savings on to you. However, again, that doesn't mean you can't overspend. The cloud makes it so easy to spin up resources, and human nature, we forget about them. And there are actually over 1.7 million decisions you can make. So it's easy to make a costly mistake. So this cost savings report will show you how you could save by following our recommendations. You're going to see recommendations for idle resources or unused resources or recommended reserve purchase instances where you can really leverage some significant discounts. And also spot management is singled out, so you can save a lot of money with spot instances. So again, our best practice checks, this time we're looking at the cost ones. In case we're going to look for idle resources. So we want to get rid of completely unused resources that we might have forgotten about, or see if we can afford to get rid of idle resources. Anytime you see the little settings gear in the right, that means you can click on it to customize the parameters of that particular best practice check. For example, you and I may have a different idea of what idle means. Does it mean 2% or 5% or 10% or 1% utilization? And over what time period? 30 days, 7 days, 1 day. So maybe we have older items that have been replaced by our cloud provider with better performance at a lower price. So we want to migrate to newer technology. Now, the neat thing you guys mentioned is alerts. We have alerts for security and reliability, but we also have alerts for cost. As you approach your budget or worse, exceed your budget, you can get alerts. And our alert system is integrated with all kinds of goodies like ServiceNow, PagerDuty, SNS, and of course email and Slack, which is what we use here at CloudCheckr. So the real opportunity for savings is through reserved instances. That's where you either make a 1-year or 3-year commitment, and you can choose to pay nothing upfront, partial upfront, or everything upfront. And so this is a real opportunity for savings, up to 70–80% of versus on-demand pricing. And one of the things that CloudCheckr does differently is that we let you choose 30, 60, 90, or even 180 days of historical data when making these recommendations. So think about it. Amazon only offers 7, 30, or 60 days, just 2 months. If you're going to make a 3-year commitment, you want to know what your usage pattern is over a long period of time. You don't want to just know the last 1 or 2 months of historical use. So before you make a 1-year or 3-year commitment, you want to be able to choose 6 months of historical data. Gentlemen?
Thanks, Pat. So, I think you touched on most of the more important tools that we use. Of course, I go to the cost savings report at the beginning of every day for all of our customers, and having an idea of what each customer needs and being able to see that summary each day kind of gives me an idea of where I need to focus my attention. And then another one, again, you mentioned the reserved instance analysis and recommendations. And as you said, if you're on the cloud and you haven't, on AWS in particular, if you haven't used your reservation or reserved instances, it usually presents one of the largest opportunities for savings, as it's usually one of the largest areas that you, largest services that you use on AWS and use the most costly. And then another one where we use, I think, cost optimization, where we use CloudCheckr extensively is being able to attribute cloud expenditure, and this is one of those areas that it can really accelerate your efforts to reduce costs because it provides an awareness of where your spend is going in respect to your business goals, essentially. So if you develop a proper naming and tagging system and then enforce it, you'll be able to attribute costs to specific business units or environments or products and projects. And CloudCheckr can produce reports based on those tags, so you get a very clear idea for your team to be able to use those reports to make the data-driven decisions that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think cost optimization, this pillar is specifically one of the places where CloudCheckr really, really shines, and it enables us as a partner to just, I believe, deliver one of the most valuable services out there with our cloud optimization service. It's really a great ability to interpret the reports from CloudCheckr. CloudCheckr does an awesome job of making it pretty easy to use. And through our cloud optimization service, you actually get access to CloudCheckr fully, just like you would if you went direct. And you get all of our expertise of actually applying it. So it's really a wonderful aspect of this partnership with CloudCheckr.
Great, thanks. And Mike, you brought up tagging, which I didn't really cover, but that's a huge part of being able to attribute which department is using what service. And we didn't talk about it, but CloudCheckr also lets you generate invoices, whether you need to charge back departments or show back departments. And so tagging is absolutely crucial to that. And one of the neat things we do that probably relates to mission is we offer tag mapping. So if you acquire or merge with other companies, as Mission has recently done, and if they have a different practice than you, a different terminology in their tagging, you can create these essentially aliases, this tag mapping where you call it one thing, they call it another thing. We're going to call them something different and map it to those different tags. So
it's an awesome feature. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah, and interestingly, just to piggyback on that, because I do think one of the topics that's going to come up in Q&A is really around that kind of tagging notion, and it goes above and beyond just departments, right? One of the things that we've seen is customers asking to understand the impact of particular workloads or features. So you can go and tag really across whatever kind of metric that you'd like, slice and dice and understand your cost. It's a really powerful concept, attribution, continuous attribution, and being fully on top of and aware of, a change that you're making, what the impact is having on your costs. So it is useful for departmental chargebacks, but it has so many more applications above and beyond that.
Great, thank you. So with that, the AWS well-architected framework is really just that. It's a framework. Like the frame of a house, you still need to add walls and plumbing and electricity, a roof, furniture, etc. to make it a home. So CloudCheckr adds vital application of elements to the AWS well-architected framework to ensure your cloud infrastructure conforms to industry standard guidelines while making sure you're not overspending on services. But Mission's a great partner that can build the house, the rest of the house, or the office building, or the manufacturing plant, according to the AWS well-architected framework and using tools like CloudCheckr. With that, thank you for your time today. We're going to open it up to questions. And thanks again. And I want to thank you, Jonathan and Mike, too.
Thanks, Todd. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so let's see what questions you have. You can continue to type questions as well. I've got one here. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. I was going to mention one of the questions that came up was, if a customer, if somebody attending wants to get a well-architected review, what what does that look like? What does the process look like? And it's actually pretty straightforward. And AWS has actually made this kind of extra appealing, right? They're incentivizing people to get these reviews because they know that if you get a well-architected review and you put in practice the best practices, you will be a happier, more productive user of AWS, and you'll be more successful. So the way they do that is by having a partner engaged to do the well-architected review, we actually can get funding from AWS to give you a $5,000 credit per workload if you sign a statement of work with us on doing, implementing some of the best practices that we do in a report. So it ends up being kind of a net no cost or a net minimal cost to you if you go through the well-architected review process with a partner like Mission. So that is a great question. Thanks for that one.
You know, that's a great point. And so sometimes people ask me, whether it's at a trade show, and they will say, you know, why does Amazon recommend you if you're going to help people spend less on the cloud? And the reality is Amazon is great about this. They've lowered prices 60 times in a decade. And it's not just because of competitive pressures, but they want people to be successful. They want people to move to the cloud and say, yeah, that was the right move for us. We saved a ton of money. We're more secure. We're more reliable than we could be if we used our own data center. So they're doing the right thing, and they know that, well, just like, you know, if you buy groceries from Amazon or something, you know that they're trying to be very competitive and make sure that they are the number one choice you have when you need to buy something. And they're taking that same mentality to the cloud. And you know, they're happy if people spend less because they're moving more stuff to the cloud, more of their business is in the cloud, and
right.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we see that all the time when AWS engages directly with us. They'll bring us customers that say they're really looking for optimization, and this actually gets to one of the questions that's been asked, and does Mission do reserved instance assessments? And the answer to that question is absolutely. We do them all the time, and we frequently do them at the request of AWS. Because they're like, hey, this customer really is probably spending too much. Help them get optimized so that they can continue to grow and be successful. So yes, we do reserved instance assessments all the time.
Great, and so I mentioned trade shows as well. Another one of these questions is, will you guys be at AWS reInvent? And I can answer for ourselves. CloudCheckr absolutely will be. We're in booth 1440, and last year we were named Partner of the Year. They made a big deal about it, so we're big fans of AWS and reInvent. We're sending dozens of folks there, and just made my flight plans yesterday. So please stop by our booth, and love to see you guys.
Yes, and Mission will also be at AWS reInvent this year with our new brand, and our whole team will be there from all three combined companies together into one. Should have a great presence. Would love to meet any attendees there. Feel free to come reach out and set up an appointment. It'd be great.
All right, cool. And so then the other question is, does the right sizing tool check instance type changes? Example, T2 large to M5 large. So yeah, that's where I started to say we should be called right typing as well, not just right sizing. So it's not just a case of going up or down, but also across a family if that's what makes sense. So good question.
To build on that, it's actually, it will assess whether you need, what it does is assess whether you need something that is more compute intensive or memory intensive, and will, you know, take your existing performance metrics that it's been collecting and analyze that. So it might suggest you to move from the general purpose, you know, M series to a compute optimized C series or a memory optimized R series of instances. So it does do that very well.
Great. I have another question here. What compliance standards does CloudCheckr score? So I mentioned that there are 35 of them. I won't go over all of them, but some of them are things like SOC 2, the AICPA, SOC 2. There's the Center for Internet Security. There's a couple Australian ones. There's a Massachusetts one, a Singapore one, a Saudi Arabia one. PCI is the payment card industry. There's a Nevada one for gaming. There's a few from the NSA. NERC, NIST, ISO 27002, IRS, HIPAA, of course, for the healthcare, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, FFIEC, CSA, and so on. So quite a bit. When you consider we do security, we do compliance, we do cost optimization, we do billing, there are companies that do nothing but security that don't come close. So they only do about 3 or 4.
It's really true. It's an extensive and impressive list when you really look at all of the kind of capabilities that there are there with CloudCheckr in that regard. And it's funny, Mission, we're actually, we do a lot of work in the healthcare vertical, and we have the AWS competency for healthcare. And so that is definitely a feature of CloudCheckr that we didn't discuss today on well-architected, because it's more of a general kind of framework. But when you think about specific verticals, there are specific concerns, especially relating to things like security and compliance, that really come into the forefront. And we use CloudCheckr to ensure that our healthcare customers are in compliance. That's definitely an aspect of CloudCheckr that we really appreciate.
Thanks. And, speaking of which, we have a customer like that, Harvard Medical School, that obviously needs to worry about HIPAA because that's what they do. But they also need to think about NIST 800-171, also known as DFARS, because that deals with financial aid information. So if you're a college, you need to be compliant with DFARS as well. If you take credit cards, which I'm sure the Harvard does, if it's nothing else in their gift store or their parking garage, let alone surgical center, you got to worry about PCI credit cards. So most industries have more than one compliance standard they need to worry about. And many also require the Center for Internet Security as a baseline, and we support that as well. Another question.
Great. Well,
came in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I noticed a question about Mission as well. So, let's answer that for sure. And the question is, in what geographic markets does Mission provide services, and in what vertical industries other than healthcare? That's a great question. So Mission is based in Los Angeles, California, and Boston, Massachusetts. But we do have customers globally. So I would say the majority of our customers are, in fact, U.S.-based, but we have customers in the UK, in the Middle East, and all over the world. We also deliver our service globally. Because we do 24/7 coverage, we always have certified AWS engineers, hands on keyboard, for our managed services customers to make sure that they're getting, always have a certified engineer ready and watching. And in terms of vertical industries outside of healthcare, we've had a great deal of success also in media and entertainment. That's a kind of an area of specialization for us out of Los Angeles. We have some financial services customers, insurance. We've got pretty broad capabilities across different verticals. The ones that we have a competency for right now specifically is healthcare. But we've got a lot of happy customers across other industries as well.
Great, thanks. I think another question came up about the zone checker. How do I access that? I'm going to send you a link. It should pop up on your display in a second, and you can click on that to access that zone checker tool. That's a free little tool that helps you pick and choose where you might put your availability zones. So the larger the circle, that indicates the more availability zones within that region. You can compare and contrast the different vendors. You can toggle them on and off, including coming soon as well. So you can click on that.
Yeah, that's a great tool. I definitely encourage folks to click through on that and take a look. It's worth a look for sure. And I think Todd mentioned you guys actually have a free trial for CloudCheckr as well, right?
Thank you for bringing it up. Yes, it's a free 14-day trial. You get to use the full-featured version, put it through its paces. One of the things I like, I'm a consumer too and techie, so when I go to a website and I want to try a new tool, I kind of don't want to talk to a sales rep. I want to just download the trial or log in if it's a SaaS product,
Right.
and just use it and see if it makes sense for me, and see what the pricing is, and all of that is available without talking to a sales rep. You can go to the link in the attachments and links section, get authorized, and start using CloudCheckr tonight, and use it for 14 days. Unfortunately, I guarantee you're going to have some security issues that you didn't know about.
Right.
You're going to have idle resources, and hopefully it's not thousands of dollars, but you're going to be wasting money, and CloudCheckr, even the free version, will help you save money, fix those security issues, and hopefully do a good enough job that you say, oh, I want this all the time. Thanks.
So there's a question that came in about Mission as well. So I mentioned managed services, and does Mission provide professional services as well? And the answer to that question is yes, absolutely. We do many projects for customers across, again, many different verticals. We're doing a large gaming project right now. We just wrapped up a big professional services migration for a financial services customer. So everything from cloud transformation type activities, so CI/CD implementation, working on infrastructure as code, doing full cloud migrations, migration readiness assessments. We have a full kind of high capacity professional services team in addition to our managed services. And in addition, we have a fairly unique service in the market called Mission Managed DevOps. And Mission Managed DevOps is, you can kind of think of it like professional services, except it's on an ongoing relationship. So it's essentially a subscription base for ongoing evolution of your environment. So where our managed cloud service is for kind of operational support and alerting and monitoring of an existing production environment, the Managed DevOps offering really adds capability to accelerate and move you ahead. You get access to a dedicated team of resources on our side, DevOps engineers, and we help you build a technology roadmap for what you want to accomplish over the year, and then we sprint along with your teams, your agile teams, in support, right? It's not outsourcing. It's in support of your team, and really helps accelerate and come and get those services implemented quickly. So we have a pretty extensive catalog of services, and our website is missioncloud.com. You can definitely check them out as well.
Great, thanks. There's one other question, and this comes up often. What permissions do I need to give CloudCheckr to access my account? So what customers will typically do is create a read-only IAM, Identity and Access Management user, for CloudCheckr purposes. And that lets you do pretty much everything we talked about except the fix now automated healing stuff, because that requires write permission. But you can go through the motions and see all the changes CloudCheckr would recommend. And then if and when you get comfortable with the automation, you can enable read-write access, and it'll let CloudCheckr make those changes. The one thing to keep in mind is we do not have access to your data. We have access to your metadata, which you can think of as the data about your data, how big files are, or how much utilization your computing instances are using. But we don't have access to your data, and that's the way it should be. And in fact, many three-letter agencies of the government support or use CloudCheckr, and we are the only, we're talking about us as a SaaS model. We are available as a SaaS, software as a service. We are also available as an Amazon machine image, which you could download and run in your own instance, and that allows us to be the only vendor of our kind that runs in the intelligence community's secret region, which is a real thing. It's not the Batcave. The intelligence community, the CIA, has their own data center, and they worked with Amazon to basically recreate a zone or a region in their environment, and their personnel operate it, man it, and you can run CloudCheckr there as well. And it's what's called air-gapped from the internet, disconnected from the internet just for government purposes. So we're the only ones who can do that.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thanks, Mission. Could you guys remind people again of the well-architected review option, because I know some people came in late.
Sure, absolutely. So just as a recap, if you're interested in accelerating your journey on the well-architected framework, you can engage with Mission to get a well-architected review. We are certified and trained by AWS to deliver these reviews. We'll come on site with you for about a half a day. We'll go through all 5 pillars. We'll give you a detailed report across with recommendations across all 5 pillars. And then if you sign a statement of work with us to actually help you remediate and resolve those issues, you get a $5,000 credit from AWS in your AWS account, which will offset all or some of the work. So it really is a very great program that AWS has created, and that Mission was one of the first partners to be able to deliver. So highly recommended service. We do them all the time. It's a great way to get started.
Great, thank you very much. And again, we're all going to be at reInvent, and I just put up a link to details about our booth 1440. Please stop by. We'll have swag, of course, and raffles, and we have a lot of great speakers as well. So definitely stop by. I always love it when people come by and say, "Hey, I heard you on the webinar." So look forward to that. And Jonathan and Mike, look forward to seeing you there too.
Same. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to CloudCheckr for having us join them on this webinar, and we look forward to seeing everybody at reInvent.
Great, thanks. Take care.